This week, the Council of Europe's Anti-Torture Committee report on Albanian prisons was published and slipped largely under the public radar. Albania has one of the highest prison occupation rates in Europe, and for many years, the Council of Europe and other organisations have sounded the alarm and called on Albanian authorities to step up standards in correctional facilities. I am joined today online by Hans Wolf, the Vice President of the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture and Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. He's also a Professor of Medicine at the University of Geneva in Switzerland, and he's a doctor. Good afternoon, Hans. Welcome to Inside Albania.
Good afternoon, Alice.
Thank you for making time for us. So I want to start, first of all, for our viewers. Can you give us a bit of background to the recently published report? So why was it commissioned? When was the visit to Albania undertaken? What was the purpose of the report?
So the CPT is the Committee for the Prevention of Torture. It is established in 1989, and we visit all countries of the Council of Europe as Albania. For example, Albania was visited already 15 times since the creation of the CPT. So very frequently we come to Albania, and we work on two principles. One is the cooperation. So it is a cooperation with the government of Albania in order to improve the conditions of detention and to prevent degrading treatment. And we also respect confidentiality. So all our results go to the government of Albania, and then it's up to the government to decide when to publish. And we are very happy that Albania accepted an automatic publication procedure, meaning that all our reports are published immediately and automatically.
Now, you said you come very frequently to Albania. Is that because of the schedule that's sort of set up, or is that an indication of maybe a number of issues here?
It is. So many countries receive frequent visits. We have about 18 to 20 visits each year. And there are some long-standing issues with the Albanian authorities. In particular, for example, there was this special institute for mentally ill prisoners in Kruja. This was now closed down. These are positive developments. There are other issues. In the past, we had many allegations of ill treatment by police, but also there was an improvement now. So it is really moving in the good direction in Albania places of detention.
Now, I can't expect all of the viewers to have read the report in full. So can you give us an overview of what you think were the most concerning issues this time around, the most pressing issues?
Yeah, the problem is Kruja is now closed. So the people are now in Leja prison and in Tirana prison hospital. And the conditions, in particular in Leja, are not acceptable. They are problematic. And also, if the numbers increase further, we are very concerned by this. And there are plans to build a new special institute, but this needs funding by the EU, and the plan is to open this until 28. But we are in discussions with the government to move this forward. The other thing is, generally, when it comes to mentally ill people, the quality of care was problematic, highly problematic. And this is partially related because there is a lack of psychiatrists all over Albania.
Yes.
And in particular in the prisons. And further, other problems were still in this big Tirana prison 313, the old building. At the last visit, we were informed that will undergo a complete refurbishment, and it is still in the appalling bad shape.
What's it like inside? I mean, when you say appalling,
it is appalling. For example, there is problematic. There's mold. It is cramped. It's overcrowded. People are too many in the cells with 2-3 square meters per person. Wow. They have insufficient hot water, so they build with electric wiring quite dangerous apparel to heat the water, and so on and so on. So it is really highly problematic and needs to be probably reconstructed. We think this is not possible to refurbish this old block, and it needs a new construction to get acceptable conditions of detention.
I wanted to ask actually about the situation with basic facilities. I have heard that there is not access to things like drinking water. You know, you can drink the tap water, but it's not advised even at home in Albania. So people are having to have drinking water sent in from outside, that the food is not great. There's issues with being able to launder clothes, heating and cooling. Are these things that you've witnessed as well in the older sort of buildings?
Yeah. Yes. And in particular, for example, we've been to Talina prison, which is a prison which there are also plans to replace it or shut it down. And the problems were quite important. This is generally a very run-down prison, state of repair and hygiene, and most cells were in the upper floor quite acceptable, but in the lower floor unacceptable. Further, the people were cramped. They had very bad hygiene in the shower facilities. The toilets were not partitioned, which is one of our standards, that toilets should be fully partitioned. This was not the case. They were only partially, and so on. So there was mold, there were broken tiles, and this, we think, is not acceptable.
Now, you talked about the situation for prisoners who are being detained sort of under with mental health issues. But I want to ask about access to other forms of mental health support. So for inmates, can they access therapy, counselling? Can they see a psychiatrist if they want to? Can they get a prescription for an antidepressant, for this sort of things? Are these things in place for prisoners? And how important is this?
They are highly problematic. The access to care is difficult. In some prisons, there is no psychiatrist. Even a psychiatrist, where there is a psychiatrist, comes in some hours per week, which is impossible to screen and to see the people. But when it comes, psychiatric care or care for mentally ill people is not only done by psychiatrists. It could also be done by nurses, trained nurses. And we also discussed with the authorities the need to have a concept and to train, for example, prison guards, that they are trained to deal with these people. And it is important to develop activities, therapeutic activities, occupational activities. There could be also psychologists, there could be occupational therapists who help these people to come over the day. What is happening now that these people are generally closed in their room 23 hours a day or even more, left alone. This we call warehousing, and is clearly not appropriate and could amount to inhuman, degrading treatment.
Are there things in place in any of the prisons, to your knowledge? I mean, you mentioned vocational opportunities. Can prisoners do courses? Can they get a job working in the prison? Can they read books? Is there anything in place to sort of help them better themselves?
There are possibilities for some prisoners, but the proposal or the possibilities also, I think it is not only it is not, let's say, a choice, or the possibilities for the prison management are very limited because they have insufficient working places, and some have these possibilities, but it must be much more. And in particular, people who enter prison in pretrial detention are in a very harsh regime with almost no activities. And further, they also have difficult access to the families because what generally in other countries and what we want to is that the possibility to receive visits, family visits, is granted for everyone. And only if there is a counter indication, if there is a problem security-wise, for example, then the judge could decide to to forbid the visits. In Albania, it's the other way around. It is forbidden for everyone, and they have to wait until the judge grants the possibility for visits. And this is one of the things we want to change to improve the access for the outside world.
I wanted to ask as well, I don't know if you were aware, you mentioned overcrowding, and I know the situation, especially in pre-trial detention, is very acute. I've heard stories of up to 8 people in a room in pre-trial detention, which I can't imagine anything worse, personally. Now, the Albanian government has announced that it will do an amnesty, a prisoner amnesty. It's forthcoming. We're not sure exactly when. Do you think this is going to work? Is this necessary? Is it urgent? And also, what about the process of keeping so many people in prison arrest rather than exploring other ways such as house arrest or being on bail, this sort of matter?
Exactly. So amnesty is one of the tools. We are generally quite critical about this. Mm-hmm. It can help on a very short term to decrease the number of prisoners. Nevertheless, amnesty will never alleviate thoroughly the prison overcrowding. This is what we want: is a holistic strategy, a sustainable reduction in the prison population, and therefore other measures, in particular, as you mentioned, these alternatives for imprisonment should be promoted, and also to see whether in the penal code something could be changed, because countries who managed to reduce significantly the prison population, they also modified the penal code to reduce sentences for different crimes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, and I mean, this is my personal view, I think if you provide prisoners, inmates with therapy, counselling, I don't mean sort of with a psychiatrist necessarily, but if you provide them with counselling if they want it, with rehabilitation if they have substance abuse issues, if you provide them with education, vocational courses, opportunities, that would also have an impact on the reoffending rate and the likelihood of people going back to prison.
You're absolutely right. I think this imprisonment has to be seen as quite holistically, because it is linked to what happens in society, and then what happens inside the prison has this impact on reoffending rate. This is very clear. Mm-hmm. And it's clear that prison conditions add to this. The possibilities of activity, of training inside the prison will affect the possibility to reintegrate society. And if this is not provided, then the risk that people will reoffend is quite high, because in prison you make not the best contacts, and you might even increase the risk of reoffending because you are in a world where criminality is much higher, and you might have the bad contacts. And so imprisonment even increases crime in the country. And this all has to be addressed.
Hans, thank you very much for your oversight, and I hope we see some more improvements. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Goodbye.